Hey, I'm Lincoln Murphy. Welcome to Slow Down to Speed Up, Why Faster Isn't Better in the Age of AI. Now, I'm excited to be here at CSX Week 2026. I'm excited to talk about customer success and customer experience and sort of the junction between those things and AI. I work with AI nonstop. I don't even know how I did anything before AI, but because I'm doing a lot of work with AI and agentic workflows and bringing that into the customer experience, there's some things that I want to talk about to make sure that we're not falling into some traps. So we're going to talk about that today. I think that what we're going to talk about together here is maybe going to be different than the other content that you're consuming through CSX Week. I hope so, at least. I hope this is different. Not because anything else is bad. I think you're going to run into a lot of aspirational content. And that stuff is really good because it's like, okay, this is what we could be doing, right? This is, if we do everything perfect, this is what it's going to be like. Here's best practices and here's all this stuff, right? That's great. But I think aspirational content, motivational content, that stuff has its place, but that's not what you're going to get from me. Not that I'm not inspirational. I just think that there's some stuff that we need to talk about because I want to be practical. Okay. I want to give you something that you can take away and put into practice immediately. That's how I've always done things. That's how I operate. I'm here to tell you the truth, not necessarily what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. Right. And that means like, you're not going to get something from me where I'm like, hey, customer success is easy. Just follow these 5 steps and it all clicks into place. That's not what you're going to get here. Okay. That is not this talk. Now, before we move on, I want to be really clear. I use AI and agentic workflows in all of my operational work. I don't even know how I functioned before. I love this stuff. I love automation. I love the ability to do things today that we just couldn't even do before. It's not like it was hard to do. We're literally able to do things that we were never able to do before. So when I'm saying these things, I'm telling you this from my actual experience in the real world, applying AI and agentic workflows to customer success and to customer experience. So the reason I'm telling you that is this isn't theory. This isn't just some ideas that I have that I'm going to share with you. These are very real things that are happening right now that I want to make sure that you avoid some of the pitfalls. So let me take a step back real quick though. And if you know me, if you've ever heard of Lincoln Murphy, it's very likely because some people like to say that I invented customer success, and I say that sometimes as a joke, but I didn't invent it. I definitely popularized it around the world, and certainly in Brazil. There was one company doing customer success that was based on my teachings back in 2015, and they brought me into Brazil, and then I really helped sort of get customer success going in the country. I'm not telling you that so you're like, oh, Lincoln Murphy, he's great. What I'm telling you that is, if you've learned from me or you've learned from anybody who's learned from me, and that knowledge is more than a couple of years old, a lot has changed. And so even though I go back a really long time with customer success, like 15 years, it's not the same as it was. And even though I was there at the beginning, I have evolved my understanding of customer success. I've certainly evolved the tactics that I use. But what hasn't changed is the underlying definition of customer success, or at least this definition that I landed on probably back in 2019, maybe 2018. I can't remember. This definition of customer success. So customer success is when your customers reach their desired outcome through their relationship with your company. Now, there's a lot to unpack there. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but this is the definition of customer success. And you say, well, where does customer experience fit into this? So desired outcome is made up of 2 things. The goal, which is the thing that the customer needs to achieve, right? It's the reason they signed up for your product. It's the reason they signed up for your service. It's the outcome they need. It's the goal they need to achieve, whatever, right? That's the thing that's actually the thing that most people think of when they think of a customer being successful, right? But there's another part to it, and that's the right experience, or what I call the appropriate experience. If you combine those two things, the goal plus the appropriate experience, you get the customer's desired outcome. This has not changed. This is still fundamental to customer success. And where I feel like customer experience fits in is here, right? The customer experience is really equally as important as it ensuring the customer achieves their goal. And knowing this, understanding this, that it's both of these things, not just one, that ensures a customer is successful or feels successful, that unlocks so many things. It unlocks a real understanding of what we're trying to do here. And the reality is, if we give them the right experience, but they don't achieve their goal, they don't get any results, they'll stay. Now, they're not going to stay forever if they're not achieving their goal, if they're not getting the results, but they'll stay longer if they're simply getting their appropriate experience. They'll at least give us more chances to help them achieve their goal. But if they're getting their goal met, getting the outcome that they need, but the experience isn't appropriate, that can actually cause them to churn. Because, yeah, I got that outcome that I was looking for, the result that I was looking for, but the experience was so inappropriate that I just couldn't handle it. And if you've ever used a product or a service that, you got what you needed to get out of it, but like something was off, so you found another product or service that gave you that result, but also did it in a way that felt right, then you've experienced this. You've experienced an inappropriate experience. And so you sought out an appropriate experience. Even with AI and agentic workflows and the speed at which we can implement the customer's appropriate experience, it might start shifting a little bit, but the fundamentals here haven't shifted. If their appropriate experience shifts, that's okay. You're keeping track of that and you can shift it with them. But if you try to give them an experience that doesn't fit what is appropriate to them because you want to do customer facing AI stuff, you might be in trouble. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So I think it's really important to understand that AI allows us to do amazing stuff at a pace that was never possible before. So AI can absolutely deliver the right experience at scale. It can help us deliver the appropriate experience to our customers in a way that we never could before, and to do that at scale. But it can also allow us to deliver the wrong experience, an inappropriate experience, just as fast. And so what we're going to talk about today is how to avoid that. Just understanding, though, that our customers have an appropriate experience, and whatever you're going to do with AI and agentic workflows, it has to fit the customer's appropriate experience. If it violates it, and let me give you just a really quick example. Let's say you want to replace, just as a simple thing here, you want to replace your customer support with a chatbot. You want to get rid of your customer support team. You put that in front of your customers and they hate it. They revolt. I don't understand. Like, the chatbot has all the answers. It's great. It's perfect. It's going to do a better job than our humans ever could. Okay. But guess who doesn't like it? Guess who this is an inappropriate experience for? Your customers, the people that pay you money. So just because you want to do something using AI doesn't mean that your customer wants that. And that's just a really simple example there. So replacing or putting a chatbot out in front of your human support people, that's not uncommon. That's just an example there. But there's a lot of other places that we can use AI, even in customer facing situations, where it really can do a lot of damage. So we'll talk about that. And I think the main thing to understand here is with AI, we have the ability to build a machine that proves to customers that we just don't understand them. And we can do that at scale. So we have to be really careful. Okay. So when I say let's be careful, what are we talking about? Well, there's 3 traps. So trap 1 is you delivered something before you listen. What do I mean there? There's a company that I work with that they have an intake form that the customer has to fill out. And they have a completely done for you service, which by the way, was only made possible by AI and agentic workflows. They went from a self-service product to a fully done for you. They actually do the work for the customer end to end, but it starts with an intake form. The customer has to answer 13 questions. And the problem is that before they went with agentic workflows and using AI to take over the work from the customer, there were complaints about the intake form being incomplete. We know that the customer very often doesn't fill out the form at all. Sometimes they fill it out, but it's just, it's a half effort. They're really not doing much. And the ones that do fill it out with more completeness, there's still a lot of gaps. Why are there so many gaps? Because people edit themselves when they fill out forms or when they write stuff. And then what happens is, in this particular example, the form is filled out and then they go on to a kickoff call. And that kickoff call is usually where the gaps are filled in, right? So the intake form, regardless of its completion, that kickoff call uncovers a lot of additional intel. It's going to fill in any gaps that were in the intake form, and it's probably going to uncover new things the customer never even thought about putting into the intake form. The problem is with this company, they decided to take the intake form and do some work for the customer before the kickoff call. Because before, it took 3 weeks for that time to first value. And this was just too much. This took too long. So they thought, well, if we automate this process, we take the intake form, we can do a lot of the work for the customer. But everybody knows that the intake form is not filled out completely most of the time. And even where it is, it's incomplete. So what was created off of the intake form was not very good. And this was presented to the customer. And the customers are saying, what is this garbage? Why are you putting this in front of me? Why are you saying I should go live with this? The customer didn't fill out the form right. So they can ask, why did you let me fill it out so badly if you were going to base this work on that form? Or to get on the kickoff call and say, hey, we've already done this work for you. They're like, well, why are we even having this call? Or we have the call, a lot of new intel comes in, then they see the work that was done and they're like, well, why did we have the call if you weren't going to listen to me? So in an effort to go from 3 weeks time to first value to literally prior to day zero being kickoff, trying to get time to value as fast as possible, they end up putting things in front of the customer that are incomplete, that are just not great, and make the customer feel like you didn't even listen to me. It's just a bad way to start a relationship. So my recommendation to them was, look, we went from 3 weeks to prior to day zero. Like, what if we waited a few days? Like after, so you have the kickoff call, you take the intel from the kickoff call, you take the intel from the intake form, you take the intel from the sales call, which has other really good stuff in there, and you combine that together, and then you do the work based on that. That solves a few things. One, it makes the customer feel like, you listen to them, because we got on the call. They took time out of their schedule. We took time out of our schedule to get on the call with them. They feel like, oh, I was listened to. But also the work that's done, it reflects what they actually told us. And that makes it just so much more valuable. It's like, okay, now this is good. So in going from 3 weeks time to first value to like a couple of days, that's great. So you can slow down to speed up. You don't have to have something done like day zero. Just because you can push something out because you're using AI and agentic workflows, you can take that intake form and you can do a bunch of work with it. Doesn't mean that you should. You need to slow down to speed up. Going from 3 weeks to a couple of days, that's amazing. The customer is going to feel like they got, we're doing work for them. They get a ton of value. They're going to feel like they were listened to. And all we had to do was just slow down a tiny bit, do things right. And that also solves the issue that you see on the screen, which is, hey, this output that's been generated, it looks like AI. And I don't know if you've ever experienced that. If you've done any work for your customers using Claude or ChatGPT or something, and the customer comes back and says, this looks like AI slop. Here's the thing. With the guardrails that we can put in place now, I primarily use Claude, and Claude is really good about this. So you can build skills in Claude, and you can be very, very explicit and deliberate about what to include and what not to include. And so I put a lot of guardrails in there to take out any of the AI tells, the things that make it look like AI slop, M dashes, AI cliches, the phrases and the words that I tends to use. I want all of that out. But just because I do all of that doesn't mean this is still not going to look bad if the intel or the context is minimal. So one of the things that people say when they say that looks like AI, they're not necessarily just pointing out the M dashes or the emojis in a ChatGPT output or whatever. They're pointing out the fact that it looks generic. It just doesn't have any specific context. And when you use just sort of raw AI, that's kind of what you'll get. And with Claude, there's a lot of like anti-hallucinating directives just built in. And then we include a lot of directives to make sure that it doesn't hallucinate. So when you take an intake form that has minimal information and you process that and you do work off of that, it's going to look like AI slop because it's just so generic because there's not much context to work with. If I was working on this and building it out from scratch based on the context that you gave me, it would probably look like AI wrote it because it would be so generic. So your customers will say, this looks like AI or AI slop, when it's not the actual like output formatting or anything. That's the issue. It's that it's so generic. So the AI didn't fail you in this instance. It's the missing context that did, right? And so if you're trying to do things without the context that your customer gives you, the output is going to be generic. But so that's going to do two things. It's going to make it look like, you're just using AI and you automated this process and there's no real thought behind it. And then it's also going to make the customer feel like you're not even paying attention to me, you're not listening to me. And it's especially bad if along the way you've done more discovery with the customer and then whatever output you're creating is not taking that additional discovery into consideration. So again, we have the ability to automate a process that just tells the customer, we don't care what you have to say or we don't listen to you. And that's less like the opposite of what we really want to do. All right. So trap number 2 is a tool for everything, a system for nothing. So one of my really big beliefs, especially as AI has become so useful and prevalent, is tools over training. Now, that's always been something that I've wanted to be able to do. I would rather give our customer a tool to use than to try to teach them how to do it themselves. I mean, like they can use the tool themselves, but to try to figure it out from scratch, I would rather just give them the tool. Maybe there's some admins or power users on their side that I would, that want to understand how this stuff works behind the scenes. But, instead of giving them formulas or giving them, SOPs or whatever, I can just give them a tool. So a standard operating procedure, SOP. I can just give them a tool and it just works. Now, honestly, for me, the best thing is tools plus training, but tools are first. With AI and the ability to create apps really just like by anybody, you don't have to be a developer, whether it's something like a sort of an AI tool building app like Lovable, or if you're using Claude Code or just building Claude artifacts or whatever. There's lots of different ways that you can build apps now and full on agentic workflows without being a developer. So this is awesome. This is fantastic stuff. And we can build amazing tools for our customers to use. Things that, again, we used to have to just explain to them how to do this. Maybe these were to fill gaps in the product. Sort of customer success, is often the glue between a product that doesn't quite work and the customer anyway. So if we can just build these tools to give to the customer, like that's awesome. Missing features, broken features, we can build a tool that sort of does that work for the customer. The problem is, so the trap is you have a CSM that creates a tool in Lovable for the customer to use, solves the problem, has the formula or has the directives or whatever that they would tell the customer generally how to do. They built it in Lovable. Great. You have another CSM that built a Claude artifact. Same logic behind the scenes, different interface, different system. You have maybe an ops person that built a Claude Code project, a real agentic workflow that has the same logic. 3 different tools, all doing the same thing, at least in theory, or at least at the baseline, and then they all take them in a different direction. So now we have different tools being used by different individual contributors on the team, working with their different customers. This becomes an issue, right? So, and oftentimes you have drift between the tools. And so what started out as they were all sort of using the same baseline logic, now we don't know which one's using the most up-to-date logic, which ones are right. And then, of course, if you have a turnover, CSM leaves, that tool that they built in Lovable was from their account. We don't have access to it anymore. So you get into some really crazy situations. So while it's awesome to be able to build tools really quickly, we have to kind of have, from a customer success, customer experience organization standpoint, we need to be treating these things as unified projects within the organization. Having these different tools built by different individual contributors, we're duplicating effort. That's wasted time. So this thing to make us more efficient is actually wasting time and resources managing and building these things. On the flip side, it's just, we have a lot of different tools out there and no centralized control over them. So we want to make sure that we're not falling into that trap of just a whole bunch of products or apps out there that are also rotting, right? Because if you're not keeping them up to date, then are they actually still useful? And so you might have some customers using an old app to do some of the work when, there's a better version that a different CSM built or a different individual contributor on the team. So you can fall into the trap of like having too many of these options. And again, the really potentially big threat here is if somebody leaves, and it shouldn't be if somebody leaves, it's when somebody leaves, do they take access to that with them inadvertently, not even, that they're trying to, but from an organizational management standpoint, like this becomes a real threat. If we have a tool that all of our customers are using and the person leaves and either shuts down their account or just takes access to that account with them, we lose access to this tool. So we need to make sure that if we're doing this stuff, that we're doing it in a very deliberate way, in a centralized way. And this is why customer success and customer experience teams need to have at least an ops person, if not an ops team as part of the organization to put these things into place and to make sure that they're managed properly. Trap 3 is automating on top of garbage. Lisho, right? This is probably the biggest trap that we can fall into. Remember this, a multiplier multiplies whatever you feed it. So if we're looking for scale, we're looking for, efficiency. We're looking for the things that, a force multiplier creates. We're looking for the opportunities that a force multiplier creates. You have to understand that whatever you put in there gets multiplied. So garbage in, garbage out, but we can do it at a scale we really couldn't do before. And this is a really big trap. So an example from one company is, they build campaigns for their customers, marketing campaigns. So they'll build the campaign, they'll audit the campaign, they'll build a plan to move forward, and then they will automate that. So they'll build the campaign based off of the audit and the plan of the previous campaign. The question is, are you taking in any of the new intel that's been discovered through other meetings with the customer? Very often it's not. It's sort of a closed loop. You take the campaign that previously ran, you audit it, you build a plan, and then plan gets executed automatically. This is how people are building their agentic workflows as sort of a closed loop because they're looking for efficiency. And they're sort of relying on the AI to, as part of their auditing of that campaign, to give you these new ideas on what you could do. So the plan is based on that audit, right? Here's what we're going to do. And we're using AI to maybe brainstorm new ideas or come up with new angles. Maybe we're basing that off of skills that we've created that tell us how to analyze campaign results. But are you really taking into consideration other intel? And one company I'm thinking of, when I looked at this, I said, you have these strategy meetings with customers, you have this QBR with a customer, you have these interactions that the customers had with the sales team about upsell, you have these interactions that they've had with the customer support team. You have all these interactions, and none of that is being factored in to the plan or even to the audit. So when you're auditing the campaign to figure out what went wrong, you're not even looking at some of the other maybe unstructured intel that the customer might have been giving you about, hey, here was their experience with the leads that were generated from this marketing campaign. Here's, you're looking at the campaign results and you're saying, it produced this many top of funnel leads. Great. But on a strategy call a couple of weeks ago with the customer said those leads, they're no showing their calls when they book them. They're not qualified, et cetera, right? But that's not being taken into consideration for the audit. The audit is simply looking at the campaign results and going, looks good. We generated X amount of top of funnel leads. Here's what we can do to optimize that. And then let's automate that and build a new campaign. Garbage in, garbage out. In this case, it's garbage because it's just not complete. And if you really trace everything back, it was all built off of that one intake form, then it would be this closed loop optimization system is built off of that one half empty form, not taking into consideration all of the different context in all of the different conversations that we've had with customers. So I want you to think about that. Are you taking into consideration all of the different touch points that we have with our customers and the data generated from those? That intel is gold. So if you're recording your calls, which you should be, if you're communicating with customers in any way that is leverageable by AI, whether that's your email inbox, whether you have people in Slack or whatever, pull that in and use that intel to help you figure out your plan. So if you were just, insert that as part of the audit process and part of the planning process, then this would be awesome. If you don't do that, then you end up in a situation where you have fast garbage. Lisho rapido. Eh? So fast garbage is still garbage. It's just this cycle that makes everything worse. So we need to avoid that trap. One thing I would just say is this: if you wouldn't sign it, don't scale it. If you wouldn't sign it, don't scale it. What do I mean by that? If you wouldn't sign off on something, if you would go back and look at what we just talked about there, this campaign audit plan, automate, and you have reservations about it, you don't think it's right, you think there's things missing, don't scale it up because that's just going to make the delivery of the customer's inappropriate experience faster. Right? So if you wouldn't sign off on it, don't scale it. Now, for some of you that are individual contributors on a team, you can't always say no. Okay. Sometimes you just have to move the customer through the process that as it's defined, but you can always say something. So you can't say no. You have to work the process as it is, but you can always say something to your leadership. Hey, this is causing this problem. And if you really want to be like someone that gets paid attention to in that situation, you need to bring proof. This customer is threatening to cancel because this was generated based off of the intake form, which they admitted that they didn't fill out completely. And the kickoff call that we had was completely ignored. The context and the intel that was derived from that call was completely ignored. And they've lost all faith in us going forward. So they're threatening to cancel. And here's the value of this customer and the value of these other customers that are threatening to cancel because of this. Start putting a dollar figure on the impact that providing an inappropriate experience at scale has. You're going to get people to listen to you a lot more than if you just say, hey, I feel like my customer is having a bad experience. I feel like this isn't great. So we want to make sure we bring proof, not just feelings. But the reality, talking about proof with AI, and again, I'm not anti-AI. I hope you understand that. Like, I'm super hyped about it. I love this stuff. But we have to be careful. We are in a situation where you can prove you don't care. We have the ability to prove to our customer that we don't care faster now than we ever have been able to before. So don't do that. Prove the opposite. Look at everything we're doing and just make sure we're not violating their appropriate experience. Make sure that they're making the customer feel seen, heard, and validated. These are not hard things to do, but they require you to look at things from the customer's point of view. Are we delivering the appropriate experience, or are we delivering what we want to deliver because we think it's the most efficient way? We can deliver things to our customers in the most efficient way, in a way that is appropriate, or we can do things in the most efficient way that's going to drive us out of business really fast. Like, that's kind of where we're at. This stuff can happen so quickly, and you can just push away a whole bunch of customers really fast if you're not careful. So none of this is anti-AI hype or anything. Like, I'm all in on it, but we have to do it the right way, which means you need to slow down to speed up. That's it. Slow down to speed up. Go out and use AI and use agentic workflows to scale your operation, to scale your delivery of the customer's appropriate experience. Do it all day long. I'm all for that, but just be careful. Slow down to speed up. There you go. I'm Lincoln Murphy. Thanks for your time. I hope this helped. Ciao.